Thank you guys for sticking around. I know it's late. We do want to do some live Q&A. We got a lot of great questions that have started to come in. So I want to welcome Dr. Jamie Reynolds and Dr. Jeff Kozlowski to jump on as well. And we can jump into a little bit of live Q&A here with these guys. So, so we will start off. I know you answered this one in the chat in Q&A, Dr. Kozlowski, but we got a lot of questions around estimating treatment time and doing treatment time ranges. So if you're not telling patients about estimated treatment time, or if a patient or a parent asks how long treatment will take, what do you suggest we say if we should ETT?
I guess maybe I didn't explain it well enough in the presentation. I'm suggesting that we don't give averages. What I am suggesting is that we give exact and specific treatment times in a single number of months. So rather than saying 18 to 24, if you think it's going to take 21 months, say 21 months. So every patient in our practice has a very specific estimated treatment time to a single month. But I think ranges just open us up for a misinterpretation. And like I said, the patients are going to hear the lowest number, and we're typically going to work towards the longest number. So, in our practice, I actually even try to avoid the 18s and 24s. So we have a lot of 17-month treatment times and 19-month treatment times and 15-month treatment times. So I saw there was a number of questions in that, on that in the chat, and I must have not explained it as effectively as I could have. So hopefully that answers the question.
Absolutely. So you both mentioned, how great, like different things like OrthoFi have been in helping your practice in a lot of different ways, but growing your practice. What's one or two other, unexpected benefits that you found from outsourcing and kind of looking at software systems like OrthoFi?
Which one of us do you want to answer first?
Either one.
You go ahead.
I think we talked about this a little bit in the last webinar. The future of your practice, the growth of your practice, the activities that you do, and if you think about a car driving, you look out the windshield. The windshield's bigger than the rear view mirror for a reason, because that's where you're supposed to look. And so collections activity for me are all looking in the rear view mirror, the best case scenarios that you get paid for what you're supposed to get paid for. And the worst case scenario is that you make somebody pretty grumpy at you for not, not the best trained collections activity. So allowing us to sort of broom that off and not worry about that, and then focus on the things that grow the practice, customer service and marketing and great patient care, to me is by far unexpected. We weren't thinking about it at the time, but by far the biggest benefit for us.
Yeah, I think the thing that's been best for us in our practice really is when Gmail came out with the snooze function for emails, and maybe they weren't the first one to do it, but you go through a weekend trying to ignore your email, and can you hear me, Brian?
Yep.
Okay. You go through your weekend trying to ignore an email, and you come in Monday morning and there's 173 emails, and you try and work through them backwards. In the snooze function, you get an email from a doctor on a Friday night about a patient that you don't even want to look at until you're back in the office on Monday morning, and you snooze it till 8 a.m. Monday morning. The pending management, I think, has really been one of the best parts, because, you'd walk into the treatment coordinator and say, hey, how's that pending follow-up going? And they go, great. And you'd have no real way to look at it. But with the ability to follow up on patients in that pending management part of the program, the TCs can literally schedule for days or periods of time where they don't have patients, and schedule follow-up calls, and even put it in with the mom. I'll give you a call at 1 o'clock on Tuesday. It snoozes till noon. It pops back up. And I think, like Jamie talked about with the leaky buckets, that is probably our best leaky bucket stopper that we've been given by OrthoFi. So that's my favorite part of what we're doing with it.
Excellent. And we got another one too, a couple things for you, Jeff, around, if you can talk a little bit more about your same day debond, and also looking at, dealing with that with your same day start process. And this is from Dr. Dovi Prero.
Yeah, Dovia. So I'll answer the same day debond to start. You know, it's really easy because we schedule 30 minutes for all adjustments in our office. And so we have an appointment that we call a pre-deband, or because I'm that old, pre-debond. And at that appointment, we're basically confirming that there's no other adjustments to be made prior to completing treatment. We make any final detailing movements and just make sure the occlusion settled in. But it seems to be about a third of the time at least, there's nothing left to do. So the patient's scheduled for 30 minutes and we schedule a debond for 60 minutes. So if the assistant can notice that early in the appointment, 1 to 2 minutes in, and call the doctor over and say, hey, I think let's do a same day deband. Then the doctor can look and confirm there's no other adjustments or anything else to do. If we're going to put a fixed lingual in, they put it in on the spot. And then, like I mentioned in the presentation, we confirm with a parent so we don't get caught with a situation where we tell the kid they're getting their braces off, but mom's got to leave. Confirm with the parent, and then really the first 30 minutes is confirming braces off, remove resin, take impressions, and then if we need to use that chair for another patient that we typically had in the schedule, the patient can go sit in the reception room. And again, this is all pre-COVID, so can go out to the car, go grab a quick bite to eat or something, and come back a little bit later for the retainers. And we always deliver the retainers same day. So really, what my point on this would be is you have a 30-minute visit, which if there's no adjustments to be done, would be done in 15. And yeah, you could get them out of the office, but then you've got to schedule an hour-long appointment at some point in time down the road. So why not turn that 30-minute visit into a 60-minute visit, do it today. It saves you a whole hour-long opening at whatever that next interval is before you can get the patient. And I hear that from a lot of offices, which is, it's problematic because my next opening for an hour-long deband is 8 to 10 weeks down the road. That's the first sign to me that a practice is inefficient. So that same day deband, it's just our philosophy of doing everything you can at any given time.
Awesome. This one is for Dr. Reynolds. I know you answered in the chat, but just for people that didn't see it, but can you talk a little bit about your virtual consult process and what you're doing there? I know that's something you've developed, you've kind of really incorporated more into your practice, obviously over the past year, but for people that are getting more familiar with it or starting to use it more, how is that process for you?
Sure. I mean, I think Dr. Waldman's a master. He's done that webinar before for OrthoFi, and I think there's a lot of information you can gain from him. We didn't know anything about virtual consults until COVID happened, and we'd entertained Greg Pellegrin from SmileSnap had been calling me a bunch saying that we needed to start using in the practice, and I was like, well, I don't really see the value. And then COVID happened, and it's sort of all of a sudden I'm calling him saying, hey, how soon can we get this on? And we kind of had to duct tape a handful of systems together while everything got built around it. We currently use that product. It's a good one. I would say that virtual consults and in-person consults which have the same fundamentals. So you should be doing all the things we talked about today, grooming the patient, communicating with them beforehand, not really trying to answer all the questions before you ask for money if you're going to do some sort of virtual consultation. And I think there's a sort of a few different ways you can do it. You can use it as sort of a lead gen where it's on your website and they submit their photos kind of in the middle of the night on their own. You can use it as like a virtual consultation tool. You can use it for them to submit photos, and then you invite them into the office and do a traditional consultation. And then we've started using it for our retreatment exams. It used to be that patients wouldn't wear the retainers and they get some crooked bottom teeth or something, and then they'd want to come in at 3:30 in the afternoon and take up a whole exam spot to talk about getting the braces back on. And now we're having them submit those through SmileSnap ahead of time so we can save that afternoon exam and then talk with the mom about the retreatment in the morning. So I think there's a lot of different ways that you could use the virtual stuff. And I know there's a lot of offices that do it a lot more innovatively than we do, but I think virtual stuff is here to stay. One of the things we're also offering now is for people that can't get in within a few days, that are busy and they seem to be sort of high maintenance about it. we'll offer them to do a virtual consult now and then set up a time with the mom at 10 o'clock in the morning or something, rather than trying to squeeze a kid in at 4 o'clock who's got a million things to do. And I think, for the creative and the people who are thinking about not doing things the same way as they have been, just because there's a lot of opportunity there for those virtual consults.
Excellent. Dr. Kozlowski, this one is for you. This was from Dr. Prero as well. Was wondering about your patient population and starting patients a bit older. Is the average age in your patient older than other practices? For example, do they have all their second molars at the time of initial bonding? And are you bonding upper and lower at the same time?
So Dovey and everyone else, no, I would say that we don't have a different patient population, nor do I have the luxury of waiting on every patient till every tooth has completely erupted. We try to take a sensible and balanced approach to it, which is, if the patient and parent are eager and desire to start treatment, and starting at this point in time isn't going to excessively lengthen their treatment, then we go ahead and start. There's times where you have a mild, let's say class 1 case with a midline diastema, but they still have ease present and they don't like the midline diastema. Let's call it a 12-month case at best, but starting with the ease present and the 7's not erupted is going to make it a 30-month case. You can have that discussion. And there's times in those cases where we've, put 4 brackets on the upper anterior and close the space in preparation for full treatment, just to keep them from being in braces for 30 months. But we try to treat patients at the best time for them, as well as the best time for the teeth. So no, I would say probably half our patients start, half of our child patients start before all the 12-year molars are erupted. And yet we still try and finish in a sensible amount of time, averaging 18 months. A big thing that we do on that is, and to answer the second part of the question is, yes, we absolutely bracket upper and lower in, probably 99% of our cases. That's the importance of turbos and early line elastics to disarticulate. And by bonding upper and lower, you're not starting with one and then waiting for the other. You're also able to make AP and transverse progress. This is getting a little clinical here, but the whole point is we want patients to make the most progress during their time in orthodontics. So we try to bond upper and lower all at once and start early elastics. And the key there, though, is if the 7's haven't erupted, we'll try and coordinate to bond the 7's at the time of the pan and repo, wherever that falls into treatment. So we pick those up at that point in time. So no, we start quite a few patients before the 7's have erupted.
Excellent. We're way over than we had planned, so we're going to do a couple more questions here, and then we'll wrap up. And then if we missed anything, obviously we will we'll follow up with everybody that had these questions. We get a lot of practices that talk about that they're really intrigued about OrthoFi. We get practice that asks us all the time. They love the aspects of what we do, the technology that Jamie, you talked about, and even the efficiencies that Koz, you talked about as well. But then they ask, how do you justify the expense when they can, sometimes hire someone for less and do it in-house on their own? How do you look at OrthoFi or other investments you make from an expense standpoint? And what would you recommend, or what would you tell a practice that was concerned with that?
I saw you laughing there, Koz, so why don't you take first bat?
No, I'm laughing because, we say we can hire somebody else, which is, probably not an accountant level, employee. And so, yes, somebody can make the calls and do the blocking and tackling to call and try and make sure patients are paying. And, I've seen over the years all these here's the deal. Orthodontists as a group will make rules to protect against the 1% of times they've been burned. Like Jamie said, they're looking in the rear view mirror rather than in the front window. And so what I think OrthoFi does is It's even to the point where you look at the slider. How many companies have copied the slider? It's not about the slider. The slider is simply a visual tool to help people visualize what we used to try and communicate, which is it costs this much, you got to put some down, you got to pay some a month. But there are some things intelligently built into the slider that create hidden guardrails. And so I'm going to give everybody a book to read. If you've never read the book Nudge by Richard Thaler, you should learn about behavioral economics and then also about game theory. And there's a lot of things that OrthoFi has built into the system that are PhD level behavioral economics guardrails and game theory that gently guide or nudge our patients towards choosing what's going to serve both them and us the best, right? It's not just about us, because we want to do the most treatment we can for the most patients. So good luck if you think you can hire somebody that has a PhD in behavioral economics and game theory to manage that part of it. I guess that's basically where I'll leave that. That's why I'm chuckling.
Yeah. I would say, there are a handful of practices out there that are run by really smart, great business people and great clinicians, and maybe they can put the systems in place and everything to replicate what the several hundred people that work for OrthoFi can do. We know that the people that we see in OrthoFi the first few years, they grow on average 14%, which the first year kind of pays for multiple years of the service fee for OrthoFi. So I think at first glance, it seems expensive. And then, I think if we dig a little deeper for the, hundreds of practices experience that we have, that many of them, it winds up being free and then some, because they grow so much, it winds up being the best financial decision they've ever made. So, not saying it's for everybody, but I can't imagine, my team can't imagine practicing without it. But take that with a grain of salt.
I'll end with this, Jamie. It's something that you touched on in your presentation, and I'd actually had taken out of mine, but it's the fixed versus variable overhead. And for every practice, each additional patient you start above what you're currently doing, assuming you're currently profitable, each additional patient you start is only at the expense of variable overhead, which is 15 to 20% of the cost. So if OrthoFi can help you develop flexible financial arrangements and start more patients that might otherwise be seeking other orthodontists, then the profitability on those additional patients is in the 80% range. And it will, over time, it only takes a few of them to pay for the annual OrthoFi fee. So, to me, OrthoFi has more than paid for itself.
Yeah. So. The thing that I would say too, to build on that was really smart, Kaz, a lot of what I talked about tonight was process. So if you just sort of behave in a certain way, then your odds of success in the sales process work. But the traditional sales process in an orthodontic office and none of the practice management softwares or really any other tool are built for the sales process. They're more built for, ceph tracing and charting and all that stuff. So OrthoFi has been built in a way where you have to behave intelligently along the sales process. The software sort of guides you down that path. And so it plugs a lot of holes in the process that are sort of wide open in many offices, number one. And number two, there's metrics built in along the way to kind of see precisely where you might be missing, where your bucket might be leaky. And so it sort of has a look over here feature to it. And the other thing that when you asked before about the sort of features that are the best, the reporting for me for the sales process is amazing too, because it shows you, all of us have people that are performing well and then all of a sudden they're not. And it's really hard to know when they are. Kaz mentioned pending. How's the pending list? And she's like, it's great. Okay, great. Pending's great. There's no other way to track it than like thumbs up from the TC. So the reporting along the way shows you where the bucket's leaky, and then you can just address it. And then if you know where to focus your attention, and then you fix the problem, process gets better, conversion goes up, and all the things pay for itself. So I think there's an unparalleled level of reporting along the way that helps people follow the process and then report on it when it's maybe broken, so you can fix it.
Awesome. One more I want to end on before we wrap up here. The practice owner was to come to you and ask you for one thing that would transform their practice in 2021, dealing with everything that has kind of happened over the past year or 2 years, especially the past year. What should it be? What should they focus on? What recommendations would you have for them?
Is OrthoFi an answer?
Yes, of course.
Okay, let's assume that's the primary answer. Going from that, I'm actually going to take a little bit of a different tack and say that I think, while I think virtual is here to stay, I mean, look, we're doing this webinar via Zoom as opposed to in person. I'm going to take the different tack and say that we should be in our practices doubling down on interpersonal engagement, communication with patients and parents, education, motivating people, being the safe place. We've seen patients that have come into our office that haven't been out to do anything else out of their house, and it's getting better now. But the early, later part of the year, early COVID and later part of the year, and I think if we can get through this time, really truly deeply engaging with our patients and their families, whether it's in person with masks on or by remembering birthdays and sending care cards, et cetera. Kids out there are suffering right now. They're doing everything on Zoom. They're losing their sense of the world with not going to school, et cetera. And a lot of our schools here in Connecticut are hybrid or virtual. So I'm gonna take the low cost, high touch, high compassion answer and say just care about people and be involved and communicate whatever form that communication is in. That's going to help us come out of this even stronger.
Awesome. Great, guys. I just want to thank you both again so much. If you want to learn more about OrthoFi, you can visit us our website, startmoresmiles.com. You can also give us a call at the phone number there and our email address, and we'll be happy to help answer any additional questions. And I'll pass anything you have along to Dr. Reynolds and Dr. Kozlowski as well. So again, gentlemen, thank you so much. To everybody here, thank you for being here tonight. We really appreciate you.